Hello and welcome to another live demonstration. Today I want to do something slightly different. I want to do kind of a step-by-step and would love to see any pictures that you produce at home. Okay, so doing a nice simple winter scene. And actually there's a lot of colour in here. So this is a great picture taken in Scotland, and Susan's kindly let me use it, but it's a photograph. And when you have a photograph, sometimes there are things that just don't look right. So this rock here is right in the middle of the page, and as a painting, it just wouldn't flow. So what I'll do is I'll move it. So when I have a picture, it's not always going to be an exact copy. It's going to be an essence of the picture. What I have done is I've just done some little sketches, really little bit of paper is a bit creased because I've put it to one side, and I've just been trying to work out where I'd like to put the main feature, which is this rock, and decided that it's better on my left hand side so it just flows into the picture. But even when I'm just doing a really quick simple painting, you still need to work out where you're going to put things. You don't want to be doing it and then go, oh, that's in the wrong place, because you can't always move it. So you'll see I have nothing on here. I'm not going to do a lot of drawing. It is going to be just see what the colours do, see what the brushes do. I'm going to put a line, and it's not going to be straight, which is this very light bit at the bottom. And I've fought for this. This is a landscape in portrait format. I like the portrait format, even to do a landscape, and Gary will often argue with me, mainly because filming you need a landscape, and he goes, you can't do a landscape portrait. I say, well, actually I can. So that is what I'm going to do, and because it's a festive season, he's quite jolly.
It's my Christmas present.
It's his Christmas present to me, to allow me to paint a landscape portrait. And that's all I'm going to do. I'm not even going to put the detail of the rock in, because you'll see why as I move down the painting. So with a step-by-step, because I want to let you see step-by-step rather than me jump about, I'm actually going to be quite controlled. So my first is, I was using lots of brushes, and actually I was struggling. In the end I went, just get the big brush. I was talking to someone the other day and they were saying, oh, well, if I've got a really tiny brush, should I go up to a size 8? And I said, well, what are you painting? Are you painting something really tiny in detail? No, it's normal painting. So I actually suggested a bigger brush, because often the bigger brush is much easier to handle than smaller brushes. They create streaks when you've got a big area of work. So I just went for it and said, you're being silly, just go for that bigger brush. So the colours I've got are red, yellow, blue, but I've added the Payne's Grey and burnt sienna. Now I know I can mix from the red, yellow, blue, the dark colours, but Payne's Grey is quite opaque, and you'll see why I need that. And burnt sienna, it's a lovely colour anyway. And these are not unusual colours. They're great in your palette, so I'm going to use them. So I'm going to tell you the colours, but it doesn't matter if you don't have the colours at home. It's your representation, it's your painting. It doesn't matter if you exactly follow. So cobalt blue, Payne's Grey, alizarin crimson, burnt sienna, and Aurelium. But it's a yellow, it's a bright yellow. And I'll talk about that in a minute because it's actually quite gummy. But that's what happens with some watercolours. So let's get going. I'm going to start with a very wet layer of cobalt blue. Now this, I squeezed them out only about 15 minutes ago, and they're a bit dry. So I just make sure I mix up, load both sides of my brush. Okay, I want plenty of colour. And then, let's go across. See, it's not wet enough. Now what I could possibly do by doing this is I might cause some back runs, but I hope not, because I'm going to start from the top again and come down. Really load up my brush. So let's start again. And the reason I've also put the tape on is I can just paint and use the whole arm length. And like Gary suggested, I have 2 water pots. I said that's a great idea. Whether I remember to keep one clean and one dirty is another matter. But I will attempt this. So I'm just drying off my brush. What I want to do is I want to bring that colour down, and it's drying quite quickly. Let's see if I can just gently bring it through. And you'll see I've actually, when I go back into it, I've actually gone over the landscape area because I just want to add harmony. Let's get rid of that brush. Okay. I've got to go back in. It's drying a lot quicker than I anticipated, and I want it very wet, especially at the top here. And I'll show you why. Okay, let's get this on quickly. The idea is to get it on quickly and not to faff around. Okay, now into the Payne's Grey. And again, I don't want it too wet. I want it wet so it moves, but I want it quite strong. So a lot of pigment, both sides of the brush, and then drop it on. And I've got my painting at an angle for a reason. It's not running down, Gary.
It's not running down enough?
No, it's not running down enough. Can I?
Tilt it on.
There we go. I want it to fall down the page and create a dramatic sky. I think I've changed my paper, which may be why it's not running as much. There we go. I'm just going to tip it and let it run down. I know you possibly can't see this. But you'll see why I'm doing this. You can see there how the dark sky started to run down. It worked a lot more effectively when I did it first time. I don't know why it's not working as well this time, but never mind. I think that's going to work quite well. So now I'm going to start with the background. With the background, I have to think about aerial perspective, which is the mountains. There's lots of mountains and lots of ranges in this picture. I'm not going to do them all. I'm not going to identify them all. But what I want to do is just show that the distant hills and the ones in the foreground. And by doing this, what I need to do is create aerial perspective. And this is when a little bit of the red and a little bit of the blue, quite light, I'm just going to add the mountain ranges in the background, and these are going to be the lightest. And as I get forward, they're going to get darker. I'm not worrying about them exactly. They're kind of just putting them on. And again, I haven't fully mixed my colours on my brush, which doesn't matter because I think it just gives you lots of different colours, just changing some shapes. Try not to faff around too much. And actually I've remembered something. There's a little lake here, and I think that's quite a nice little feature I'd like to keep. And there's a hill here, which I want to just keep. So while that's drying, I'm going to again go in with the same colours, and you'll still see I'm still using this bigger brush, sorry. I'm just taking off some of the water from the heel of the brush because I don't want it too wet. Let's see if I can now, I don't think it's going to, might still be a bit too wet. I'm going to add a little bit of Payne's Grey. Don't want to make it too dark coming forward. There we go, that's lovely. What I might do is drop a little bit of this yellow in. Yeah. So again, there's wonderful trees. And it doesn't matter if I leave gaps, that's going to look a bit like either lakes or mists or... Okay. So actually, this is why I like this brush, because it does a lot of the work for you. You can see there, moving from light to dark. And what I'm resisting the urge to do is go back into it. I'm just waiting for the colours to work themselves. And this is what I love about watercolour. I'm not overly worrying about what exact colour I put on, where it goes. This is my interpretation of this picture. It will have key features. So now I'm just making the landscape a little bit darker again. I've added a little bit of yellow onto my brush. It's a little bit more difficult, but again, I want to keep that lovely shape, and I think this brush just allows a little bit less control. Again, darker, I want a bit of yellow. It's going to just catch some, there you go, that's nice. And often as it dries, you'll then see the colours come out to themselves. And I think that's the fun aspect. So just adding a little bit of dark as I move forward. Not too dark, it will dry lighter. But I'm not, I know it's a step by step, but I'm not giving you every colour to use. This is where you can have a little bit of fun and actually, you know, find out how things work. See that, whether they work or not. Again, don't fiddle with it, because what will happen is you'll lose some of these lovely qualities. Once it's dry, I can then go back in and I can add bits. So just because I'm moving this way down, I'm just going to finish the mountains, and I think that worked quite well. I'm quite pleased with that, and I love the dramatic sky. I'm just going to add a little bit of yellow and a little bit of red to make it's a dull orangey sandy colour, which you can see just on the top of this mountain, and I think that's a lovely feature which I want to just bring out. It creates a little streak there, it just adds a little bit of colour. And now hopefully this is going to be dry enough. I'm just going to pick up the lake. Now the lake, the water in the lake reflects the colour of the sky. So I'm just going to, again, I'm not going to overdo it, but I need it to not be just striking. I let it dry. Again, I've let it dry, see what happens. And this is a beautiful thing about your watercolour. Okay, so moving forward, very quick for me. Back to my big brush. It stops me faffing around. It stops me kind of fiddling, and just let the watercolour do its job. Okay, this hill here, it kind of sweeps round here. So I'm going to add a little bit more yellow. And the snow was hit here, but I think deeper in the valley, the snow's not touching any of the ground underneath, it's just on the higher mountain. Okay, that's not the colour I want. So another tip is have a little swatch next to you, but because I want to just see what happens, I'm not overly concerned about the colours I'm putting on. What I do like is this texture of the hill where you've got these stripes coming down. And again, I will go into that once it's dried, and I will just add a little bit more detail. Okay.
We've got time for a couple of quick hellos.
We do have a couple of time for a couple of quick hellos.
Shall we say hello to some of our regulars? We've got Svetlana watching.
Hello, Hello, Svetlana.
There we go.
I got it.
Salma.
And Salna.
And Claudine.
Claudine. I've not said hello to Claudine before.
There we go.
Well, hello, and I hope you are all happy in this festive season.
Svetlana loves watercolour. So
It's just, you've got to be brave. You've just got to let it do it. So, now I'm actually going to work down and put in the shadow. This is why I haven't drawn any of the rocks, because to be honest, I'll just see where the shadow goes, where the rocks happen to be. I do know I want a bigger feature here, but on the whole, I'm just going to let the colours work. So the blue and the red, if I want to dull it, I might add a bit of yellow. Now, snow, though it looks white, has got so many other colours in it, which is why I'm just picking up a little bit of the yellow, because I can see here what I want is a very weak solution. That's still too dark. So wet my brush. Okay, maybe still too dark. Let's pick up. Okay. That's better. And I know I want to use the feature of the fence, and it has shadow under it. So again, I'm not overthinking. This is where you just have to relax a little bit sometimes. Just move my brush around just to make, using the texture of the paper, and go over the tape. For me, this is very subtle. I would normally have gone in a lot stronger, but I'm trying to keep it. I always keep trying to challenge myself, just so you can challenge yourself as well. Okay. The darker area is here, so obviously the shadow. I'm just trying not to do stripes across, which I can see is happening. Okay. Running out of blue, Gary, I'm going to need some more. Want to get it on quickly, and then we'll take a short break. I'll dry it, because then I can start with the detail. So just gets a really wet wash, and I want to strengthen a little bit. Add a bit of yellow, because I don't want it all that purple. I want to strengthen as I come down here. And you can see again, I've not completely mixed the colours on my brush. But that's where the watercolour just has its own character.
Quick question?
Yes.
Bonnie would like to know what size of brush it is, and is it a synthetic or natural hair?
This is synthetic. I tried using natural hair when I tried to do it first, and I was getting really frustrated with it because it just doesn't work for me. Yeah, a Kalinsky would work lovely, but this is a synthetic hair. The size is 25 mil. I could have gone bigger, but I couldn't find one. And you'll notice I'm doing a lot of the work with it. And I was trying with a lot smaller brush, because I really wanted to do you a step-by-step that you could do and try, but I was really struggling with a much smaller brush. Okay, again.
Sorry to interrupt again. Cheryl, who's watching, says good morning. You've inspired her to paint this afternoon. The housework can wait. Oh,
well, what's housework? Painting is much more important. You make a mess anyway. Well, I do. Okay, I'm going to keep fiddling because I'm going to get distracted. So I'm going to let it dry, and we'll see what happens, see what it turns out like, and then I can work from there. But I'm just kind of giving you a feeling of the painting, and this is the great thing about watercolour, just see what happens. Okay, so join me in a minute or two, and I will have this dry by then.
Let us bring out the artist in you. If you'd like to learn how to paint or improve your painting, the SAA is here to inform, encourage and inspire you every step of the way. When you become an SAA member, you get so many benefits, including the free bi-monthly newsletter Paint, packed with inspiring step-by-step projects, fascinating articles, and detailed information to get your creative juices flowing. Discounts on over 13,000 art products featured on the SAA website and in the Home Shop catalogue, with free order line and free delivery in the UK mainland. A devoted SAA team on hand to answer your questions and give you the confidence and motivation you need to start painting and develop at a pace that suits you. Plus a free welcome pack filled with gifts and practical help to get you started, as well as the opportunity to make friends with like-minded people.
Best thing about being a VAT member is the inspiration from the magazines, to be able to purchase things at a very reasonable price.
Yeah, you get the reduction on all the materials, the advice you get.
I can shop from home.
It's a community.
It seemed like a very friendly sort of organisation.
If somebody's thinking of joining, don't spend too long thinking. Just join. They'll love it.
And we're back.
Hello and welcome back. So I've had a chance to dry this off. I've also had a chance to look and review. And that is, I know I say it all the time, but it is really important because then I can see, oh, that worked really nicely. No, I don't need to go back into it. So I'm going to start from here and I'm going to work down and just add detail. So there's a little bit of here is not quite worked. It's a bit too stark. Like I say, the snow isn't all white. So I just want to add a little bit of texture and colour in here. I want to still keep it loose. I don't want to lose all the qualities. Just add texture. I don't want to overdo it because I want to make it different. Zip, stop. Right, I'm going to use the burnt sienna now. And I'm going to put in some of these posts, I would say, that separate the fields. I'm just going to do it quite gently. It may not catch each time. I've picked up a bit of the Payne's grey as well. Just making them move around, and as they come forward, just make them a little bit bigger. Now, these are spaced fairly evenly. This is one of the few things that I'm going to make even. But you'll see I'm also just making them a bit wibbly wobbly because they're not a solid fence. They've been blown around in the wind. Okay, I'm not going to add railings or anything like that. It doesn't need it. Let me think. There's a lovely one here. And this goes, what I can do is make it wibble and wobble over, just remembering to make them bigger as they come forward. And you can see there how now that's suggested that the ground wibbles and wobbles. One last lot. So this is closer, so I'm starting with the fence being closer. And just by changing, there's a little bit here, there's a kind of a gate. Just want to just make it look different. Again, I'm not overthinking it. So at the moment, those, especially these ones, I'm not too worried about this, but don't look like they've actually attached themselves to the ground. So I just need to do that. And I'm again, try not to overwork or do too much to it. I don't think it needs it. I do think we need a little bit of a strengthening shadow under here. Just to ground them. That's all I'm doing is grounding. Okay, done. Very little, sometimes a little touch is just what you need to make it finish. So now I'm going to work on this rock here. The others I will just drop in. So I haven't drawn it out. I wasn't overly concerned. Now I'm just going to get a structure of it. The one I did previously seemed too very square. So I'm just giving it a slightly different shape. Just adding some other rocks around it. I'm looking at shape, I'm not looking at specific rocks. Unless someone is standing there with you and wants an exact painting, they're not going to worry about specific rocks. So let's change that a little bit because it's not worked on previous paintings. Lovely. just catch the snow. Let's work there. Let's put a big one here. Okay, I'm not doing any more. I'm going to just see what happens with this. Now, when I tried it before, I was putting too much colour in the rock. So I'm going to look at the shadow, put the shadow down, so it's a bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of the Payne's grey, just putting a layer of colour down where the shadow is, and then let that do all the work. So wet brush. Yes, I haven't kept them clean, Gary. But I think it's been okay. And I'm going to just wet the brush and move it. I was making this with a rock, there is something you do need to do. It's much better if you do keep some sharp edges, just to show that it's a sharp item rather than a much fuzzier, softer landscape. So I'm just, to be honest, I'm not even going to be overly concerned about the light in this. I think the shadow of the snow is going to suggest light. Okay, leave that because I know it's going to create its own texture. I'm worrying about, the reason I'm worried about this one is because I've not yet got it, I'm not being happy with it yet. But, okay, let's take that up. There is some snow, so with snow it often creates a particular shape. So this is where I'm going to do most of the work. I'm not going to worry too much. Right, I'm moving on. The reason is I can come back and darken if I need to. That's just, so Payne's grey, bit of burnt umber, not overly mixed. Just put a dark streak under here, dark here, here. And then with my clean brush, my hair's tickling my nose, just use that pigment that's already there, push it up into a sharp structure. Again, the last thing I'll do is I'll just look at the shadows of the snow and I can just add a few touches there. So you're just pushing that pigment, making a much more solid line. Don't like here, it's just two structures, so let's just put another one in. Okay, just break it up a little bit. And I'm going to start and put a few more. What I'm going to have to be careful about is keeping them all the same size or where I place them, because I don't want them to be evenly spread. Okay. There's one here. And they're all kind of becoming the same shape at the moment, like this one. Let me try this one. So I'm picking out key features, key shapes. Again, it's shape that I like. And the snow's just hitting the top of this one. So I'm just picking out the shape of that. And that worked really well. It's a nice one at the back here. It's going to be those final touches that just tie it all together. Right, I'm going to do some dotting around a few rocks. What I'm trying not to do is, it's really hard, it's actually really hard to do, is not to See, I've got all those on a line, so I need to break that up. And this is why you don't do too much. They're all very same shape. Stand back. Let's put one here, and then I'm going to stop because I'm starting to faff. Let's change. Okay. So while they're drying, I'm going to put the shadows of the snow underneath them, then just finish with those. Because they're rocks, I want to really just give a little bit more definition. And then I'm done. I'm going to stop. So just add a little bit more shadow just to make it a little bit more realistic about where that they're grounded. It makes them grounded. Grounds the rocks. It's too strong. Doesn't have to be everywhere, but if you just add a little bit of shadow, it just looks less like they're very random. So here, they were placed as if they were placed and you did them purposely rather than just let it be a little bit. Oh, I've got some dark, let's just add a little bit more darkness. So yeah, you probably can see things I've missed, but it's you will have more time and you can put your own features in. You can put sheep in, you can put people, you can put a hang glide, you can put whatever you want. I just want to show you how easy it is just to get to this stage. Okay, last bits of dark. And again, I'm not going to overdo it, but these items at the foreground need that bit of detail. It just soft, harder, just gives you that perspective. So shadow under the snow where it's breaking up into the rock. I'm just picking up some of the Payne's grey. Just making it sharper and harder. Darken here. Don't know why I'm leaving that bit. Seem to be a bit strong. A bit scared of it. So let's just. Okay, that's nice. That's moving nicely now. I was being scared with the colour. I wasn't putting enough down. Okay. And you can see just by a little bit of shadow, little bit. Suddenly it's just made that little bit. This one's behind, so it needs the shadow here. Okay, it worked. Dab in. Okay, let me stand back. I'm going to leave it because all I will keep doing is I'll keep fluffing and then I'll think, oh, it's not worked. See how it dries and go from there. So I hope you enjoyed that little demonstration, and I do hope you have a go. Like I say, it doesn't matter what colours you've got, it doesn't matter what brush you've got, just work the stages I've done and see how things work. You know, that light area in the background, right into the little bit more details. So I'm just going to take this off because it's the fun bit, to be honest. Either putting a mount round or taking off your paper. This is the kind of, it's really revealing bit, I suppose. Kind of just finishes it. And that little white outline just brings it all together and it just makes it feel finished. So there you go. So join me early next year for another live demonstration. And Merry Christmas to everyone.
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas.